The stale smell of airplane coffee clung to the back of my throat as I stared out the window, watching the sprawling suburbs of Chicago shrink beneath us. I was headed back to what I thought was home, a quiet life in a quaint Victorian house in Evanston, Illinois, with my wife, Bronwyn. I'm Ansel, a 46-year-old software engineer, and I just wrapped up a grueling 6-week project in Silicon Valley. I was exhausted but also eager to see Bronwyn, to hold her close and tell her about the insane deadlines and the even more insane personalities I'd encountered. We'd been married for 15 years. 15 years of shared breakfasts, weekend trips to the art museum, and quiet evenings spent reading side by side on the couch. Or so I thought. Lately, things had felt different. Bronwyn had been distant, preoccupied. Her laughter, once a constant soundtrack to our life, had become a rare and precious thing. I chalked it up to stress. She was a high school history teacher, and the end of the semester was always a pressure cooker. But deep down, a nagging unease had begun to fester. The feeling intensified when I landed at O'Hare. I texted Bronwyn that I'd arrived, expecting her to be waiting at the curb as planned. Instead, I got a curt, "Traffic is awful. Be there soon." 30 minutes later, she finally pulled up, her face tight and her eyes avoiding mine. "Sorry, Ansel. Meeting ran late," she said, her voice flat. The air in the car was thick with unspoken words, a tension I couldn't quite decipher. The drive home was silent, save for the drone of the engine and the occasional traffic report on the radio. When we finally arrived, the house felt cold, unwelcoming. Even our golden retriever, Barnaby, usually a whirlwind of tail wags and sloppy kisses, seemed subdued, offering only a half-hearted greeting before retreating to his bed. That night, Bronwyn barely touched her dinner. She claimed to be tired, and after a perfunctory peck on my cheek, she retreated to bed. I sat alone in the living room, the silence amplifying the gnawing feeling in my gut. I tried to distract myself with a book, but the words blurred on the page. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The next morning, Bronwyn left for work before I even woke up, leaving behind a hastily scribbled note on the kitchen counter. "Early meeting. See you tonight." Again, there was no warmth, no affection, just a cold, impersonal message. I decided to take Barnaby for a walk along the lakefront. The crisp autumn air and the rhythmic lapping of the waves usually calmed my nerves, but today they did little to soothe my growing anxiety. As I walked, I replayed the past few months in my mind, searching for clues, for any explanation for Bronwyn's behavior. Had I done something wrong? Had I somehow failed her? The idea that she might be seeing someone else flickered through my mind, but I quickly dismissed it. Bronwyn wasn't the type. She was fiercely loyal, deeply moral. Cheating was something she would never do, or so I desperately wanted to believe. The next few days were a blur of forced smiles and strained conversations. Bronwyn continued to be distant, evasive. She avoided eye contact, and when I tried to talk to her about what was going on, she brushed me off, claiming I was imagining things. "You're just tired, Ansel," she said, her voice laced with irritation. "You need to relax." But I couldn't relax. The feeling of unease had morphed into a full-blown panic. I started losing sleep, my appetite vanished, and I found myself constantly checking Bronwyn's phone, her email, anything that might offer a glimpse into her secret world. I knew it was wrong, that I was violating her privacy, but I couldn't help myself. I was desperate for answers, for some reassurance that I wasn't losing my mind. One evening, while Bronwyn was in the shower, I finally succumbed to temptation. I picked up her phone, my hands trembling, and scrolled through her messages. Most were mundane, texts from colleagues, reminders about school events, the usual daily chatter. But then I saw a name I didn't recognize, Garrett. The messages were innocuous enough at first. "Good morning, beautiful. Thinking of you." But as I scrolled further back, the tone became increasingly intimate, increasingly suggestive. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I miss your touch." My heart pounded in my chest, my breath catching in my throat. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. This couldn't be happening, not Bronwyn, not my Bronwyn. I continued to scroll, my eyes scanning the screen, desperately searching for some explanation, some way to dismiss what I was seeing. And then I found it. A message from Garrett sent just a few hours earlier. "Meet me at the usual place, 7 p.m. The usual place. What was the usual place? I had to know. I had to find out the truth. I knew I was walking a dangerous path, that I was risking everything, but I couldn't stop myself. I had to see it with my own eyes. That night, after Bronwyn told me she was going to a late meeting at school, I followed her. I felt like a character in a bad spy movie, tailing her car through the dark streets of Evanston. My hands gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, my mind racing with a mixture of anger, fear, and disbelief. She drove to a small, dimly lit bar on the outskirts of town, a place we'd never been to together. I parked a block away, my heart pounding, and watched as she got out of the car and walked inside. I waited for a few minutes, trying to compose myself, trying to prepare for what I was about to see. Then I took a deep breath and walked towards the bar. The air inside was thick with smoke and the smell of stale beer. The music was loud, the atmosphere grimy. I scanned the room, my eyes searching for Bronwyn. And then I saw her. She was sitting at a table in the back, laughing and talking with a man I'd never seen before. He was tall, with dark hair and a cocky smile. He leaned in close, his hand resting on her arm, and then he kissed her, right there in front of everyone. My world shattered. Everything I thought I knew, everything I believed in, crumbled to dust. I stood there, frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe. I wanted to scream, to shout, to tear them apart, but I couldn't. I was paralyzed by shock, by disbelief, by the sheer magnitude of the betrayal. I turned and stumbled out of the bar, my vision blurred with tears. I didn't know where I was going, what I was doing. I just needed to escape, to get away from the pain, from the image of Bronwyn kissing another man. I drove aimlessly for hours, the streets of Evanston a blur of lights and shadows. I ended up at the lakefront, the same place I'd walked with Barnaby just a few days earlier. The waves crashed against the shore, their rhythmic roar a constant reminder of the turmoil inside me. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, watching the sunrise paint the sky with hues of orange and pink. The beauty of the scene was a stark contrast to the ugliness of what I'd just witnessed. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, a sense of resolve began to form within me. I couldn't stay in this marriage, not after what Bronwyn had done. The trust was broken, the love was gone. There was no going back. I drove home, my mind clear, my purpose defined. I packed a bag, gathering my clothes, my toiletries, the few personal items that mattered to me. I didn't take much, just the essentials. I didn't want to be weighed down by memories, by the ghosts of our past. When Bronwyn came home that afternoon, she found me sitting in the living room, my bag at my feet. She looked surprised, confused. "Ansel, what's going on?" she asked, her voice hesitant. I looked at her, my eyes cold, my heart numb. "I know," I said, my voice flat. "I know about Garrett." Her face paled, her eyes widening in fear. "Ansel, I can explain," she stammered, her voice trembling. "There's nothing to explain," I said, cutting her off. "I saw you last night at the bar." Tears streamed down her face, her body shaking with sobs. "I'm so sorry, Ansel," she cried. "It was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen." "A mistake," I repeated, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Kissing another man is a mistake. Spending weeks lying to me is a mistake. Please, Ansel, don't leave me," she begged, reaching out to me. I flinched away from her touch, my skin crawling with disgust. "I can't stay here, Bronwyn," I said, my voice firm. "I can't be with someone I don't trust, someone who would betray me like this." I stood up, picked up my bag, and walked towards the door. "Where are you going?" she cried, her voice desperate. "I don't know," I said, turning back to face her. "But I know I can't stay here. I need to find myself again, to rebuild my life, to find someone who will love me and respect me the way I deserve to be loved and respected." And then I walked out the door, leaving Bronwyn standing there, alone and heartbroken. I moved into a small apartment downtown, a sterile, impersonal space that felt like a temporary refuge. I threw myself into my work, spending long hours at the office, trying to drown my sorrows in code. I avoided thinking about Bronwyn, about our life together, about the future we had planned. But the memories kept creeping in, unbidden, unwelcome. I saw her face in every crowd, heard her voice in every conversation. I missed her terribly. I missed her laughter, her warmth, her touch, but I knew I couldn't go back. The betrayal was too deep, the wound too raw. A few weeks later, I received a letter from Bronwyn's lawyer. She was filing for divorce. I wasn't surprised. I signed the papers without reading them, my heart heavy, my soul weary. The divorce was finalized quickly, efficiently. Our 15-year marriage was reduced to a stack of legal documents, a few signatures, a rubber stamp. I tried to move on, to start dating again, but it was difficult. I was guarded, suspicious, afraid of being hurt again. I went on a few dates, but nothing clicked. The women I met seemed shallow, superficial, unable to understand the depth of my pain. I started to wonder if I would ever find love again, if I was destined to spend the rest of my life alone. One evening, I received a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated before answering, my hand trembling. "Hello," I said, my voice cautious. "Ansel, it's Garrett." My blood ran cold. I wanted to hang up, to block his number, to erase him from my life. But something compelled me to listen. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice tight with anger. "I wanted to apologize," he said, his voice subdued. "I know what I did was wrong. I never meant to hurt you." "You stole my wife," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "You destroyed my marriage. How can you possibly apologize for that?" "I know it's not enough," he said, "but I wanted you to know that I regret it. Bronwyn and I were not together anymore. She left me a few weeks ago." My heart skipped a beat. "What?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "She left you." "Yeah," he said. "She said she made a mistake, that she realized she loved you, not me, but it was too late. You were gone." I didn't know what to say. I was stunned, confused, overwhelmed. "I'm sorry, Ansel," he said again. "I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me, someday." And then he hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at the phone, my mind reeling. Bronwyn had left Garrett. She regretted her affair. She wanted me back, but it was too late. I couldn't forgive her. The trust was gone. The love was dead. I had moved on, or at least I was trying to. I had started to build a new life, a life without her. And I couldn't go back to the old one, not even if she begged me to. A few months later, I met someone new. Her name was Vivian, and she was everything Bronwyn wasn't: open, honest, and fiercely independent. She was a graphic designer with a quirky sense of humor and a passion for life. We started dating, slowly at first, cautiously exploring our feelings. And then one day I realized that I was falling in love again. Vivian didn't try to replace Bronwyn. She didn't try to erase my past. She simply accepted me for who I was, flaws and all. She helped me heal, to forgive, to move on. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly happy. One evening, as we were sitting on my balcony, watching the sunset over Lake Michigan, Vivian turned to me and said, "You know, Ansel, you deserve to be happy. You deserve to be loved." I smiled at her, my heart overflowing with gratitude. "I know," I said, "and I am." I finally understood that betrayal, while devastating, doesn't have to define you. It can break you, but it can also make you stronger. It can teach you valuable lessons about love, trust, and forgiveness. And it can lead you to a place you never expected to be, a place of peace, happiness, and true love. I never spoke to Bronwyn again. I never saw her again. But I often think about her, about the life we had together, about the choices she made. I hope she found happiness wherever she is. And I hope she learned from her mistakes as I learned from mine. Because in the end, that's all we can do: learn, grow, and move on.